Are you able to describe that feeling when you explore a brand new world for the first time? Imagining how fast you can go. What's the highest point I can reach? What secrets lie within the hidden chambers? And most importantly, who is going to take me there? Well, that all depends on the vessel the game provides you with. Who you control is an essential part of many games, and in my opinion, no genre exaggerates character design and abilities like 3D and 2D platformers. In this episode of GameSpeak, I want to take a deeper look at what makes the characters in our favorite platformers so special, asking questions like, what are key characteristics that go into designing characters for platformers? How does the design of the character influence the design of the game's world? And what are some of the philosophies of creating an engaging character? All of these questions will be answered and more. I will also be trying a fun experiment at the end of this video, so stick around to find out what it is. With the introduction out of the way, let's start stretching our legs and get ready to run, jump, and dive right in. Before we can start to understand how character design can influence platformers, we first need to understand some basic principles of the genre. Just by hearing the word platformer, I assume you can paint a pretty solid picture of what it's about. You see a platform, and something just urges you to jump to it. In his article, Creating a Platformer Game, Ivan Spasov includes a plethora of informative images and descriptions that show you the key components of a platformer's design. The black dot represents the player. They can move left and right with the ability to jump. The player's main movement pattern will be a combination of these options to get from point A to B. To add more tension, enemies will be placed throughout the level, with each having a unique way of being defeated. We'll get into greater detail about that later. Finally, we introduce interactable objects like levers, buttons, or anything else that will help add another level of complexity, as well as obstacles to fill in the empty space, encouraging strategic movement to the game's level design. So we know what goes into the foundation of a platformer, but now we need something to manipulate these building blocks into thematic assets and create mechanics that will fledge out the game's world. And the greatest influence for a game's world is the character that sets out to explore it. A character's design is the very heart and soul of the game. Without them, there is no vision for the world, and no purpose for the player. Even something as simple as the square from The World's Hardest Game has influence into the title's design and overall message. A character's physical attributes can determine how they interact within a 2D or 3D space. A small and nimble character might take advantage of speed and agility, acting as a glass cannon, while a large and bulky character will prioritize using strength, with the choice of when to be aggressive or defensive being a key mechanic of the game. The player should be able to get a general sense of how a character can function just by looking at them. A game's box art is a terrific resource for getting a first impression on a character. For our first example, let's look at one of gaming's greatest icons, Donkey Kong, specifically from his newest game, Donkey Kong Bonanza. Let's get the obvious out of the way. We all know Donkey Kong is an ape. We know that apes are large, strong, and have a love for fruits. Bonanza's box art expresses all of these attributes from DK by having him take up a large portion of the box's cover, guiding the eyes to his fist smashing solid stone, emphasizing this act of strength with debris flying everywhere and what looks like either lightning bolts or cracks pointing all the way towards DK's fist. The love of fruit comes from the play on words in the game's title, turning extravaganza, an elaborate or spectacular entertainment or production, to bonanza, telling the player that bananas are going to be a big part of this game. Now we have the inclusion of Pauline. Seeing how she's holding onto DK's tie with a look of excitement, I'd say it's safe to assume she will be joining us for this adventure. But there's something about how she appears in this box art that hints to how the game functions. The fact that she's in a falling position rather than just casually holding on to DK's back tells us that the punch DK delivered to the stone may not have been executed by simply standing, but instead by falling from a great height. Okay, now let's summarize what we observed. By only looking at Donkey Kong Bonanza's box art, I'd say in this game, you play as a large ape who is strong enough to break through solid stone by utilizing the combination of DK's natural strength and gravity. This adventure will have something to do with bananas, based on the title's play on words, and Pauline will be joining us for the ride. Punching, falling, bananas, child. Game of the year, everybody! Playing the game, we find out that what the box art shows us is incredibly accurate to what we predicted. Donkey Kong can punch through stone with ease, we can use many different movement options to navigate and destroy the world around us, and gravity is utilized to enhance the damage we deal to the terrain and our primary method of seeing new areas. Bananas are a very essential part of the game's themes and progression, with Bananium Gems being the resource used to level up Donkey Kong's abilities, and though it takes a little time for the reveal, Pauline is our helpful companion throughout this adventure. with her singing abilities giving DK the power to transform into different Bonanza animals. All the little details around DK and Pauline are the building blocks that help shape the world of Donkey Kong Bonanza. Donkey Kong's strength lets players explore the world and uncover secrets either by running, jumping, and climbing, or just smashing through the walls themselves. Enemies have an outer shell that needs to be cracked before they can be defeated. Some are as simple as punch it till it dies, or need to be defeated either by using the world around you, quite literally, or by using Pauline's singing to help DK get the upper hand. It's these design points of DK's character that help make the world around him feel so engaging to explore. Let's take a look at a 2D example. Blasphemous, developed by the Game Kitchen, is well known for its expressive grimdark style and violent themes for both the main character and the world you explore. A lot of inspiration for the game's world Custodia came from religious iconography, Spanish architecture, and history. So when coming up with the design for the Penitent one, you can put up a decent argument that the world around him designed him, at least aesthetically. There is a brief moment where you can see an early design of the character where he kinda looks like a vampire hunter, but the final design ended up being based on the San Benito, the uniform used by the Spanish Brotherhoods during Holy Week to display penance. But when it came down to how the world functions, enemies, traps, and mechanics were designed on how the Penitent one felt to play. One big factor is the mea culpa, a sword the Penitent one uses to deliver deadly attacks and brutal executions. You are also able to parry attacks, meaning that when an enemy goes to strike, they need to be just as expressive so the player has enough visual stimuli to react. But defeating every enemy just by waiting and reacting appropriately gets boring. So to add complexity, let's give some of them a shield and have the player counteract by jumping to their weak side. Give the enemies a form of range so the player has to get in close to attack, or use limited resources like magic. And depending on the level design, these interactions can be further varied by the environment. Yes, the player has a lot of tools, but the world needs to reflect how these tools can be used to their advantage as well as exploit their weaknesses to deliver a satisfying feeling of accomplishment for when the player conquers that challenge. All of this wouldn't be possible without a clear depiction of how the game's character is designed. Now we know how character design can influence a game, but how can we make them engaging besides gameplay? Well, a great way to start is by selecting an archetype. Sri Harsha writes, starting with an archetype is essential in game character design, because archetypes are universal, recognizable character types, such as heroes, mentors, or villains. They provide a strong foundation and help players quickly understand and connect with the character. Using familiar archetypes ensures that characters are relatable and engaging from the outset. Some of the more common archetypes they list are the hero, sage, villain, outlaw, and explorer. Once we have our archetype, we can then form the character's backstory, what motivates and challenges them to help fledge them out during the adventure. And with our archetype and backstory created, we can then include attributes. These should align with the character's backstory, define key personality traits, and be customizable to let the player add personal touches to them, either in the form of cosmetics or skill trees. Now comes the experimentation part of the video. Finally, we can start to visualize our character, and I thought it would be fun to create my own character, and even show off some concept art of the moves they would execute in a video game based on their design. And what better foundation to choose than, well, me? Well, not actually me. Despite having the perfect setup to be a PNG tuber, I consider Galic to be his own thing rather than just an extension of myself. You see him more than me because it makes for great editing practice, but also I'm just way too lazy to turn on the camera. I have no problem showing my face, it's really just an effort thing. Though if you would like to see more of this, be sure to subscribe to catch one of my random live streams, or head on over to my cooperative channel, N-Star, and watch the podcast that Meeks and I put together for you guys. Alright, and with that, off with the camera, and back to the character design. So, this is really neat, because I never had a reason to fully fledge out Galic in a more creative way. And the fact that I'm expanding his character with the game design foundation honestly feels poetic, seeing how this is my favorite art form. Okay, let's get the first couple steps out of the way. Galic is definitely an anti-hero. He does what he wants, and he will do whatever he needs to do to get what he wants. His backstory is that he is an alien husk whose home planet got destroyed by a supernova. Rather than be incinerated, he lost the husk-like appearance, and the radiation from the dying star mutated his skeleton, allowing him to expel a similar energy from his bones. So all that steam around him are the hydrogen particles interacting with the radioactive X-rays that his skeleton produces. His motivation? Being an agent of chaos to studios who make bad video games. For his abilities, well, he can expel cosmic radiation from his body, which can propel him through the air, shoot energy beams strong enough to blast through solid walls, and can heat his body to form radiation clouds to stun enemies. He's a bit of a glass cannon, so if he is struck, bones will fly off his body. If he gets too many times, he'll crumble into a bone pile and his cloak will fall to the ground slowly. To give you guys a better visualization, here's a couple concept drawings drawn by my good friend Hune Yirik, and I cannot express how much I love the way she drew these. I wanted them to look like those rough sketches you see out of concept art books, and she absolutely nailed it. So that's how I would design Galic for a video game. I understand it's nowhere near as fleshed out as actual video game characters, but I'm happy with it. I think it's a solid foundation for if I ever want to take the concept of Galic further in the future. The characters we play as in our favorite video games are the vessels that lead us down the paths of these incredible worlds to explore. So the next time you boot up your favorite video game, I hope you can see how their design affects the character as well as the world around them. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found something interesting about the topics discussed, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!